Welcome back to Views with Hughes, Agenda Free News. This is Jerome Hughes. Now, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, right about now, we're focusing on Timothy Zahn, the man who brought us Grand Admiral Thrawn and his role in Star Wars, or perhaps the lack of it, in Disney Star Wars under Kathleen Kennedy and her leadership. Now, Kathleen Kennedy and her influence is definitely undeniable at this point, and we've got a bit to cover, so be sure to buckle up because Kathleen Kennedy's presence looms large in discussion. So if you enjoyed sharing this video, go ahead, smash the like button, share far wide across social media. Now, first off, if you're a true Star Wars fan, not just a fan of the Disney, not just a fan of the OG George Lucas edition, and Kathleen Kennedy ruined Disney one, then you're the fan of the deal. Timothy Zahn is. This guy isn't just some author who jumped on the Star Wars bandwagon, which Kathleen Kennedy's regime seems to favor. And Zahn is a science fiction mastermind. His career kicked off back in the 80s when he started cranking out short stories and novels that had actual substance. And intricate plots, deep characters, and that good old-fashioned storytelling that we appreciate, unlike the superficial content that Kathleen Kennedy has been pushing. Now, Kathleen Kennedy's approach to Star Wars is a far cry from what Zahn brought to the table. Now, here's the interesting part with this whole thing that's being spearheaded by Kathleen Kennedy. Now, Zahn had put up a really on the map for Star Wars fans, and Grand Admiral Thrawn is not, your typical bad guy. Now, to Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, we've seen plenty of typical uninspired villains, but Thrawn, created by Zahn, is a strategic mastermind. He doesn't just twirl his mustache, actually, he doesn't have a mustache, and blow up planets for fun, but he's actually calculating, brilliant, and in many ways an antithesis of the shallow villains Kathleen Kennedy has produced. And Thrawn was a breath of fresh air in a galaxy far, far away, long before Kathleen Kennedy got her hands on Star Wars and shifted the focus. Now, speaking of Thrawn, just basically got to address the big elephant in the room. Dave Filoni, where credit is due, is one of the few people in Disney Star Wars under Kathleen Kennedy who seems to actually get it. Filoni brought us Thrawn in his live-action Ahsoka series, and people say that it wasn't a good enough Thrawn. Rumors are swirling that Thrawn would be in the big villain, not only in Ahsoka but also possibly in a new trilogy orchestrated by Filoni and Jon Favreau. The fact that Filoni is working under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership and still managing to respect characters like Thrawn is a feat in itself, or we shall see. But Kathleen Kennedy and her involvement, however, always cast a shadow over this creative decisions at Lucasfilm, and Filoni and Favreau seem to have a bit more sense than Kathleen Kennedy and her story group, who have continuously pushed Star Wars into a political soapbox. And we all know that Kathleen Kennedy's touch on Star Wars has been controversial, to say the least. But it's not surprising because Kathleen Kennedy simply destroys Star Wars. But here's the kicker. At a recent fan convention in Nashville called ICCC, Timothy Zahn revealed that he hasn't been contacted by Disney, not for consultation on Thrawn, not for the movies, and not for season 2 for the Ahsoka. That's right, the man who created Thrawn, the genius behind the character, hasn't even been given a call or consultation. Now, you can't help but wonder if this is another one of Kathleen Kennedy and her stupid decisions. It's baffling. This is the same company under Kathleen Kennedy's reign that's happy to bring in all sorts of activists to write and direct, but they can't make time for a man who created one of the most iconic villains in Star Wars. Now, that's Kathleen Kennedy's influence right there. And Zahn, being the class act that he is, didn't seem too bitter. He mentioned that for a while, while a consultation creator would be nice, what he really wants is a cameo in the movies. Now, imagine that. Zahn would be content with the small role, yet Kathleen Kennedy and Disney can't even pick up the phone to ask for his insights on the character Thrawn, the very character he made famous. Now, what exactly does it say about Kathleen Kennedy and her priorities? Well, it's actually clear that under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, Lucasfilm has been more focused on pushing identity politics and wokeism and meeting diversity quotas and honoring the source material. And that's Kathleen Kennedy and her legacy right there. And she wants to go out on a win, but highly doubt that's going to happen. Now, to be fair, Zahn did express some confidence in Dave Filoni. He said, I trust Filoni to get it right. He's read books. He cares about the stick characters. He gets it. And I think we can all agree that if anyone's going to get Thrawn right, it's Filoni, despite Kathleen Kennedy's heavy-handed heavy hand over Lucasfilm. And Zahn also mentioned that Pablo Hidalgo, though he gave the impression that Hidalgo comes from more of a games perspective, which is okay. But again, it's not exactly the guy you want running the narrative of a character like Thrawn, especially with Kathleen Kennedy overseeing things over at Lucasfilm. But here's where it gets dicey. You see, Zan's concern, like many of us, is that Kathleen Kennedy and her story group will mess it up. And why wouldn't he be concerned? I mean, look at what Kathleen Kennedy has done to Star Wars, under her leadership. Kathleen Kennedy turned it into a political soapbox instead of just the epic space opera that we all know and love. And Zahn is absolutely right to be worried about Kathleen Kennedy and Kathleen Kennedy's story group ability to deliver on this character. And we've seen time and time again how Kathleen Kennedy, her involvement in Disney Star Wars has led to divisive, watered down content that doesn't resonate with the core fan base, which led to the core fan base to depart from the whole franchise. But here's the thing. When Zahn was reminded that there aren't many people above Dave Filoni anymore at Lucasfilm, he smiled and said, and that's a good thing. He's right. The less influence Kathleen Kennedy and her story group have on Star Wars, the better off that everyone will be. Now, Kathleen Kennedy and her involvement have been a major factor in why Star Wars has veered off so far, of course. And Kathleen Kennedy reduced control over key projects like Filoni's could be a glimmer of hope for the franchise itself. But I doubt it'll bring the fans back, though. But let's not lose focus. Just focus on Zahn's lack of consultation. We also need to talk about how Kathleen Kennedy and Disney have handled Star Wars books in general. Now, back in 2022, ThatPopPlace.com reported that Barnes & Noble had a contractual obligation with Lucasfilm and Disney to provide prominent shelf space for the High Republic. That new line of novels that Kathleen Kennedy been pushing and stuff that failed on flat face and stuff, even though nobody asked for them and even fewer people care. But here's the funny part. These books of the High Republic weren't even selling. So what did Barnes Noble do? They just pushed the High Republic books down to the bottom shelves, barely noticeable, and instead gave the prime spots to the older Star Wars novels written by people like Timothy Zahn, because guess what? Those books are the books people actually want to read, not the agenda-driven fluff that Kathleen Kennedy has been promoting. Now, this situation perfectly illustrates Kathleen Kennedy and her misguided priorities. And Kathleen Kennedy has been at the helm of Disney Star Wars pushing the agenda-driven content that nobody cares about, while the books that, actually matter, the ones that resonate with real Star Wars fans, are basically left in the dust. And it's clear that Kathleen Kennedy and under her leadership, the franchise has lost its way. And the fact that the matter is that older Star Wars novels, particularly Zan's Thrawn Trilogy, are outselling the new woke content should be a wake-up call for Kathleen Kennedy. But will Kathleen Kennedy listen? Probably not. You see, Kathleen Kennedy has proven time and time again that she's more interested in pushing woke political narratives than respecting the fan base that made Star Wars a cultural phenomenon in the first place. And that's nothing new because, well, obviously this is Kathleen Kennedy. And also, let's not forget, Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy is credited with revitalizing Star Wars in the early 90s during a time when interest in the franchise had dwindled. And his books, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command didn't just sell well, they brought Star Wars back from the brink, something that Kathleen Kennedy could never dream of achieving with her projects. Now, they introduced us to Grand Admiral Thrawn, a villain who's so compelling and so well written that he instantly became a fan favorite. Now, Zahn's work laid the foundation for the entire Star Wars expanded universe, which grew into a massive collection of, novels, comics, and games. And this was back when Star Wars was about storytelling, not about pandering to woke political agendas under Kathleen Kennedy, before Kathleen Kennedy decided to go ahead and take it in a different direction. Now, so basically here we are in 2024, and Disney still doesn't seem to understand the value of Timothy Zahn's contributions. Now, you think that you can thank Kathleen Kennedy for that, but sure, they'll use his character, but they won't give him the respect or credit that he deserves, and they're too busy pushing the Republic and other new material that nobody cares about, because that's where Kathleen Kennedy has decided is important. But meanwhile, Zahn's Thrawn books are still selling better than the new content that Kathleen Kennedy is churning out. So what does that tell you? You see, Kathleen Kennedy and her priorities are completely out of touch with what the fans actually want. But you know what? Beyond Star Wars at this point, Zahn's written, a ton of other great science fiction. His Conquerors trilogy and Cobra series are examples of his ability to blend military strategy, complex moral dilemmas, and the nature of power into gripping narratives. Now, this dude knows how to tell a story, unlike Kathleen Kennedy, and that's why his work continues to be successful, even outside of Star Wars. But here we are watching Disney under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership completely miss the particular opportunity to go ahead and bring him into the fold for their latest projects. But you know what? In the end, Zahn's legacy in Star Wars is secure despite Kathleen Kennedy's best efforts. Now, he gave us Thrawn. He revitalized the franchise when it was on life support, and his books are still beloved by fans all over the world. But Disney? They're too busy playing politics under Kathleen Kennedy just to see the value right in front of them going down. And it's a shame, really, because if Kathleen Kennedy had any sense, she'd be calling Zahn up, giving Zahn a seat at the table, and Kathleen Kennedy will be letting him help shape the future of Star Wars. But as long as Kathleen Kennedy and her story group are in charge, I'm not even a hope for my brother. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts you might have this particular topic. If you enjoyed what I shared in this video, go ahead, smash the like button, share far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already, you enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, click the bell notification so that way you'll be notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.